Hi and hello everyone. Welcome to what I guess I'm going to end up calling Berg's Brief. Not the most imaginative name in the world, but basically it's just sort of like I've been doing the channel now for a couple of months, and there's a few things going on at the moment, and I thought I just wanted to sort of address subscribers and sort of friends as well that I've met from doing the channel, people who I do multiplayers with and all that, and just sort of say first off a big thank you. I got to 350 subscribers the other day, which I remember getting my very first subscriber, and it was like pretty awesome feeling. Like, someone subscribes to your channel. It's amazing. And then now, see, there's another 349 plus of you out there who, obviously watch what I put out there, and that's pretty cool. It's a cool thing. It's always fun to have people watching what you're doing. It's kind of the point of setting up a channel. But anyway, so I just wanted to say a big thank you to anyone who's watching this, who has subscribed, who's ever commented. Be it positive or negative, I don't mind. I'll try and respond to pretty much all the comments that are left, and I really do enjoy interacting with. I don't want to say fans because that makes me sound quite egotistical, but subscribers, that's what you are. You're subscribers, and people who have left comments, and even if you've left comments and you're not a subscriber, whatever, it's good to get involved, and I take everything on board, and I like the interaction anyway. So I wanted to just get that out the way, and say big thank you to everyone in regards to that. Now, the other point I wanted to touch on a bit more, as you'll see in the title, is hospital visit. And by the time you watch this, I will have already been in hospital. I go in the hospital the same day. This should be going out on Tuesday morning, UK time. I'm not sure what time I'm actually going to post it up, but whatever, it'll be Tuesday morning in the UK, and I'll have already been in the hospital. I'll have been in the hospital since at least 7:30 a.m. UK time again, and I'm going to be having an operation. I'm not going to be in hospital for too long. I'm only going to be in for maximum 5 days, but whatever, it's still surgery and stuff like that. And it's actually the reason for this surgery. I'll sort of come on to it in a second, but it's sort of like the final part of what's been sort of an 18-month period of my life, which has been pretty tricky, to say the least. To paint you the full picture, I'll go back to when this all sort of started, and that was Boxing Day 2013, is when this whole period of my life sort of got on the way. What happened was, Boxing Day, for those of you who don't know, I don't know, some Europeans might not be aware, or maybe some Americans aren't aware what day Boxing Day is, but Boxing Day is the day after Christmas Day, so the 25th of December. And it was my last day off of my Christmas break from work, and sort of eating the leftover food, whatnot, from Christmas dinner the day before, and just a little lounging around, watching TV, whatever. I got work the next morning, so I go to bed, and I wake up in the middle of the night, and my stomach, I've got this really pain in my stomach. It's like stabbing pain. I don't know. I felt really full and bloated, and I just thought, maybe I just overdone it. I'd eaten too much, and I'll be fine. I'll just sleep it off. But anyway, so I tried to go back to sleep. I tried to go to the toilet, maybe to do a poo. Maybe that'll help move something out, but nothing's really giving. And I'm like, okay, it kind of hurts, but whatever, it should pass. Anyway, goes on. Night becomes morning, and I'm still in pretty bad shape. It's still hurting me really badly. So I call into work, and I'm like, look, it's not the greatest excuse in the world, but it's true. I can't come in because I don't know, I've got some sort of stomach pain. I don't know what it is. I'm not throwing up, but my stomach hurts. And they're like, okay, well, don't worry, whatever it is, what it is. So I sort of lay around in bed, and it's still really hurting. It's like it's not constant pain, but it was like being stabbed every sort of minute or so, like in your sort of stomach. It's a really horrible pain, and like it's not gone away. But anyway, I tough it out, whatever. It'll pass. And it comes a point where it becomes the evening of the 27th, and I'm still in a lot of pain. Things haven't got any better, and it's like, okay, well, this is coming up to 24 hours. What am I going to do? Like, it's not got any better whatsoever, and I'm in a lot of agony at this stage. I really can't handle that pain anymore. So, I have to make a call to the ambulance, because, what are you going to do? You've got this pain for over 24 hours. Something's obviously wrong. So, I call the ambulance. They end up coming. They take me to hospital. They give me pain, they hook me up on all the drips and all that. They give me painkillers, and they tell me not to eat. Obviously, if you've got stomach pains. But so yeah, this is the evening of the 27th of December 2013. So I'm in hospital there, and they're like, okay, well, we're not sure what it is. They think it's like maybe my appendix at first. They're doing all these tests. They're not sure what it is. And anyway, so I'm in overnight. the next day, they I don't know how they did it exactly. I think they took some blood and whatnot, but they basically ruled out the appendix. They were like, okay, it's not appendicitis or anything like that, so we've got to move on. So they start to do other tests. They do like an ultrasound test in the area. They even send me for a CT scan after a couple of days, and basically they can't work out exactly what it is, but they can see that it's not actually my stomach that's the pain. The pain is actually from my intestine and my bowel, my large bowel. There's some sort of blockage there, and they don't know what's causing it. So, they do all these other tests and bits and pieces, and they're not really sure what, exactly how to proceed. Anyway, fast forward to New Year's Eve. So 31st of December 2013. It's the most depressing New Year's Eve ever, basically. You're just sitting there. I went to bed beforehand. I had friends and family visiting earlier in the day, but there comes a point where they boot you all out. I think it's like 9 o'clock or something like that is by the time they're sort of like, right, visitors need to go home. So I'm like sitting there and I'm like, wow, okay, this is awesome. It's going to be a great New Year's Eve. And anyway, so I managed to go to sleep through it. And the next day, January 1st, New Year's Day, whatever, sort of, I remember, I remember sitting there in my bed, not watching, but keeping up to date with an Arsenal game, because it's traditionally on New Year's Day in England, in soccer anyway, you have like a full fixture list, so there's games. And I remember Arsenal won their game very late. It was like a 90th minute winner against a team they should have really beaten anyway easily, and I was all really happy about that. And the game kicked off about 3, so this is probably about 5 o'clock. And I'm all really happy, late last-minute goal. I mean, despite the fact that, it's a bit shitty still being in hospital and not being 100% sure what's wrong with you. But I just remember being like, okay, well, yeah, at least there's that. In comes this surgeon, literally 5-10 minutes after the game ends, and he's like, right, we are going to have to do a major operation on you, because your bowel has got to a stage where it's extended so much that we're worried that if we delay by another day or so, that it might burst. And if that happens while we're not in there, that causes a lot of problems. You don't want that to happen. So I'm like, okay, what's going to happen? Is like, well, what we're going to do is we're going to cut you from just below your rib cage all the way down to sort of where your belt would be, if you know what I mean, sort of like, so where your trousers would come to. And what we're going to do is we're going to go in through that incision, and we're going to remove the part of your large intestine where that blockage is. So I'm like, okay, that seems pretty serious. And they're like, yeah. And the surgeon's like, then what we do is we stitch the remaining part back together, and these are the risks involved. And I remember him saying, but the major one that we're concerned about is it not actually holding back together when it stitches back together. And if that happens, then we have to remove it all, and you have a colostomy bag. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't sound great. And like, well, what are the chances? He's like, well, it's about 10% chance of that happening. And I'm like, all right, so like 1 in 10 people, that fucks up. And I'm like, all right, well, I mean, if I have to have it, but like, Jesus, that's a bit scary. And he's like, yeah, but my personal statistics for doing this operation, it's only 3% at a time. And I'm like, okay, well, Jesus, maybe you want to lead with the 3% rather than the 10%. But whatever, I mean, that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that they're going to do a big major operation. And I was like, okay, well, New Year's Day. And I'm like, oh, when's this operation going to take place? And they're like, yeah, we're probably in about an hour's time. We just need to prep you like for the anesthetic and all that. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right, I guess, you don't have a lot of time to think about it. It's just all whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. So anyway, fast forward about an hour and a half or so later, I'm waiting to go into surgery, and the anesthetic team are there, and they're all chatting away to you, all being really friendly. And I just remember sort of like, you fall asleep, and then I kind of remember being asked like, hey, you all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. I've just got an operation to deal with, like, that's going to come in a minute. So like, it's not the greatest. I remember the nurse going, no, they've done your operation. You've just woken up. And I was like, what? No, they must have not done it all. Like, they've still got more to do. And she's like, no, it's all done. But I'm glad that you're okay and all that. I'm like, okay, am I? Whatever. Anyway, feel all a bit weird. So they wheel me back up to the ward. They've done their operation. I can't really feel much, like, because you can imagine they actually had an epidural in my spine, like, to numb basically that whole area, the whole sort of like, I couldn't really feel anything from sort of the mid-chest down to sort of below my knees. It's really weird feelings. It's kind of like being paralyzed, I suppose. But yeah, anyway, so they wheel me back up. I'm all spaced out coming off the what do they call it? The anesthetic and all that, So whatever, they let me sleep it off through the night, and then in the following morning, the surgical team turn up, and they're like, okay, well, What we removed was a tumor. It was a tumor that was blocking your intestine. And now we don't know whether it's malignant. We don't know, what it is, but it's a tumor. It's going to take us about 10 days or so to send it to the lab to get the results to find out exactly what the deal is. But for now, you don't need to worry about that. What you need to worry about is just getting on the mend. And trust me, after that kind of surgery, there's not really much you can do. You can't really move around. You're kind of bedridden. But you've just been told that you've had a tumor removed from you that was blocking your intestine. It's fairly scary. I mean, it's like I just turned 30. That same month, like December 12th, 2013, I turned 30 years old, and you're like, okay, a fucking tumor removed. Like, what the hell is this? So anyway, next 10 days sort of roll by, and believe me, probably the longest 10 days in my life, because when you're stuck in a bed with not being able to move much. Not really much going on. Like, you've only kind of confined to your own thoughts, and when you've got visitors and stuff like that, like your brain goes through a lot of different thoughts, and it's a scary time when you've got nothing to go on, and you always think the worst, and it was a very hard 10 days. Not only just the recovery from the trying to get better from the actual initial surgery, but just the mental strain of waiting for this result. This result. What the hell was this tumor? What's going on? Anyway, so the 10 days pass. We're looking at we're around sort of January the 10th, January 11th, something like that, 2014, and the sort of surgical team, the doctors come back in, and they're like, okay, well, we've got the results back, and the tumor was cancer, and it's you had bowel cancer. Now, obviously, I don't know, people react in different ways to being told news like that. I know as a 30-year-old guy being told, you had cancer, you kind of shut off. I didn't really listen to much what they said straight after that. It's just sort of like, okay, that doesn't make sense. That can't be right. It doesn't compute. How can I have bowel cancer? And but there you are. The key word, which I actually didn't register at first, but the key word was had, because they'd removed it, you see. And luckily, they went on to tell me that from the test they'd done on the lymph nodes and all that other shit, it hadn't perforated the intestine, which is good. It hadn't spread to any of the lymph nodes, and it hadn't carried to anywhere else that they could see in the body. So it was at what's called Dukes B stage, which is the second stage. And the survival rates, I think, through 5 years or 10 years on that is about, it's fairly good. It's about 85% or something like that when it's only at that stage. So whatever. And they removed it all. There was no spread and anything like that. So, I mean, it's still, though, at the time when you get told that your cancer, bowel cancer, blah, 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 removed, you're pretty scared. But they were like, look, we've removed it. It hasn't spread anywhere, so there's a lot of positivity there to take from it. And what we recommend is that you go home. We'll send you home in a couple more days. You get ready. We'll make an appointment for you to go and see an oncologist. They're specialists for sort of chemotherapy and stuff like that, and see what they say. So what do? You spend a couple more days in hospital. You go home. You start to take things easy, and then you get a letter in the post. You go and see the oncologist now. Thankfully, as I said, it hadn't spread anywhere if it was good in that regard. So when I saw the oncologist, basically what they told me was that they, in most cases, if once the tumor's been removed in that regard, they wouldn't normally recommend the chemo for it, because the chemo for that specific type of bowel cancer is these tablets that you take, and it's people who get this are usually, I mean, I know it's not obviously because I had it and I was 30, but usually people who get bowel cancer are usually in their sort of 50s and 60s and stuff like that. And they basically, they said normally we wouldn't even recommend it if you were sort of like 50 to 60, because it only actually lowers the chances of it coming back minutely, like maybe 1 or 2%. But they basically said because you're 30 years old, that 1 or 2% could mean quite a lot, down the line. So okay, this was around, I think, mid-February. So I take a 6-month course of these tablets, chemotherapy, and it's rough. I mean, look, I'm fully aware it's not the worst kind of chemo that you could get, the one where they inject it into you and your hair falls out. But I mean, it still has quite a horrible effect on you. You know, you feel crap, you feel tired, you feel nauseous all the time. It wasn't a great 6 months in my life, but you know, you got through it. I got through it with the help of my wife, my family, and you know, you get through it. What else are you going to do? You know what I mean? You just got to put on a brave face and you get through. And in that time, you know, you'd be going for regular tests, regular checkups, and all that, and everything's good. So we speed up to what was it? Beginning of September 2014, and I go for one of these. You know, going every 6 months for CT scans. There's all these other sort of tests that they do, blood tests, whatnot. And now the one that I hadn't had was a colonoscopy, and this was due for that September. And basically what they do is they like stick a camera up your backside and root around. It goes all the way into your bowel, into your intestine, and they have a little look around, and that's I mean, if you've never had it, you can imagine, you know, would you like something shoved up your bum and then going through your intestine? It's not the most pleasant feeling in the world. And you're all conscious through this. It's not like they put you to sleep, like you're awake while this is all going on. Anyway, the idea is they go inside, they have a little look, they take a little bit of the skin in that area, or so they take some, I don't know, they take a little bit of the intestine out and then they test that. That's the idea of this. Anyway, so they go up, and they're instantly, like, I can watch it, like it's on this TV whilst you're like laying on your side, but you can watch it as well at the same time while they're doing it. So it's kind of fascinating. Kind of takes your mind off it a little bit, like, because you're watching it and you're kind of like fascinated by looking inside, and it's kind of taking your mind off the fact that it's actually up you. But anyway, they go in, and instantly, like, you know, they're having a look in there, and the doctor's like, okay, well, this is a polyp. And there seems to be a lot of them. There's this one, that one, that one. And I'm like, okay, what's a polyp? And he's like, well, a polyp is what becomes a tumor. And they're not uncommon. He goes, you know, not most people. He goes, but, you know, there'll be a lot of people, you know, maybe you who's listening to this right now, you know, will have a polyp or two, you know, in your intestine in there. You know, they're not superly uncommon. They are what turn into cancer, but in most cases they never do anything. They just sit there and that's it. And as I said, most people don't have any. Maybe some people have one, some people have two, whatever, and in most cases nothing ever happens to them. Anyway, as they're going through my intestine, the guy's like counting through, and basically there's like loads of these motherfuckers all over the place. Basically they came to an estimate. They said there was somewhere between like 75 to 100 of these motherfuckers in what was left of my bowel. I'm like, okay, well, you know, I'm no expert, but 75 to 100 of these seems like it's not great. And he's like, look, I'm not going to lie to you, you know, it's a little bit concerning. He goes, the good thing, I've been through pretty much the whole bowel. I couldn't see anyone, there's not one that I could see that looked like anything was going on. Now, we don't know that 100% till we test, but you're tested pretty regularly, blood tests, all this kind of jazz, so the chances are none of them have gone bad like what that original one was. But he goes, it's certainly something to ponder over, and we're going to have to discuss it with your team, and they'll come back with your options. So I'm like, okay, well, that's great. You know, I thought this was over, but maybe it's not. So that was September 2014. So September last year. I think they had the follow-up meeting in October, and basically it's the same surgical team who operated me on the first time, and they basically say, right, you have three options. Option one, you could live to you're 80 years old, die of natural causes in your sleep peacefully, and not have one of these sort of 70 to 100 polyps that you have turn cancerous. It can happen. That can happen. Chances are it probably won't happen. Chances are pretty high that at some stage in you know, as the years go by, one of these will go cancerous. Increased by the fact that one already has gone cancerous, the initial one that caused all the initial problem. So whilst you can ignore it and hope for the best, statistically it's probably not going to work out. So I'm like, all right, yeah, I don't really want to stick my head in the sand, so yeah, what are my other two options? Option two is that every 2 months or so, they stick that camera back up my bum, they scan through, they keep removing a couple at a time, because they can't remove all of them at one go, they remove a couple at a time, and this goes on for a long time. Now, you can do that, but it's very uncomfortable. There's also no guarantees. They could miss some, you know. They're taking them at random, you know, one could go bad whilst being missed. So there's all kinds of risks involved there as well, and it's very uncomfortable and all kinds of shit. So I'm like, all right, well, what's option 3? Well, option 3 means that I will never have to worry about bowel cancer again. I'm like, okay, option 3 sounds pretty good. Why are they giving me it as free? Why wouldn't that be option 1? Well, it means that they have to remove the rest of my bowel. No bowel cancer, eh? Kind of makes sense, I suppose. You can't get lung cancer if you got no lungs. Problem is you can't breathe, but there are ways that you can get by without your bowel. It involves a colostomy bag. It involves a stoma bag. So you're pooping out your belly into a bag. Now, that didn't sound like a lot of fun to me either. I was like, okay, really? Yeah, I'm not really up for that idea. Thankfully though, I was kind of like, again, I needed to listen to them better. It wasn't a permanent one. What they do is, whilst they take out the rest of your intestine, they actually fashion this sort of like pouch out of tissue. I don't know how they do it, but what they do is they make what would be the equivalent of that stoma bag, that colostomy bag, inside you. So it's made out of your flesh and tissue, and that's where your poop would store and go out. But at least it's inside your body. Now the problem is, it takes between 3 to 6 months for that to all heal up properly and all be okay. So anyway, I was like, okay, well, that seems like the best course of action, even though it's going to be tough, but it seems like the best course of action. I never have to worry about bowel cancer again, right? Yeah, of course. So I go into hospital on the 11th of November, and they cut me open again. They used the exact same spot as the scar, so it's from like that scar from the original operation, from just underneath my rib cage down to my belt line. Use that right across the belly button. And I wake up, and I've got a bag where poop goes into, on outside of me, like literally just on the right hand side. So if you imagine where your belly button is, and it's a couple of inches to the right, and that's where it is, a poop bag right there. I'm looking at it right now whilst I'm recording this. By the time you hear this, it's going to be gone, I believe, but I'm looking at it right now. It probably could do with a bit of emptying right now as well, actually, now that I think about it, but I'll wait till after the video. Anyway, so as I said, that was in November the 11th. Remember what I said earlier? 3 to 6 months, they said. 3 to 6 months. Well, it took a little bit longer. And since November, I've been living with a poop bag. And I'll tell you what, people react to things in different ways. Some things are harder to other people than they are to others. Chemotherapy, I found it pretty easy. I managed to get through that. Yeah, I felt like shit, but, I put on the brave face. I fought through it. The first couple of months of this bag were by far the hardest I was freaking out constantly. There's so much shit that can go wrong with this fucking bag. You can't sleep properly, like you fucking leaks. You get, the problems, like you constantly looking into the toilet while you're fucking emptying your shit out in front of you, out of your bag. And it wouldn't be so bad if it was like once a day, but because you've got no bowel, you're shitting constantly. It was a nightmare. I don't know how. It was like a horrible dream, at least the first sort of 2-3 months of this. But, thankfully my wife managed to help me get through it all. And, after a while, like anything, it just becomes normal. It becomes second nature. It's part of you. I guess, I don't know. You lose your leg. It's probably fucking horrible. God forbid I ever lose my leg. But, I'm sure it's fucking a nightmare. But you probably eventually get used to the fact that you only have one leg. Well, I'm not comparing. I'm not saying that, having a shit bag on the outside of your body that's from your belly is worse or better than losing a leg. But the point is that, you eventually get used to your circumstance. You might not like it, but, you get used to it. And anyway, so that's what's been going on this last couple of months. And, I had a lot of time off with all of this, and I decided to start a channel to sort of... I always wanted to do it, and I thought, why am I putting it off? So I started a channel whilst waiting to get this operation back, and, all this time passes, and finally, tomorrow, or as you're listening to it today, that bag comes off. I'm going to be bagless. I'm actually going to be pooping out my own backside again for the first time in, what are we looking at, first time in 8 months. And it's been a long 8 months. Doesn't seem like 8 months. It seems like, well, I wouldn't quite say 8 years, but it seems like a long time. And, I suppose it is a long time. I mean, because it's not just this poop bag, but it's kind of the continuation process of what started on Boxing Day 2013. That whole initial pain to going through all of this, to then having to have a bag, to having your intestine removed, all of that. And now, finally, this, I think, is the final stretch, is the final hurdle, whatever you want to call it, and it's just, it feels good. Feels good. I've been lucky. Could have been a lot worse. And, you know, I don't want to make it sound like, oh, woe is me, or I'm some sort of like, but I braved through it, or something like that. But, you know, it's nothing to do with that. It's just, I'm just happy, and I'm thankful that I'm still alive. And it's been a long 18 months or so, or however long this has been. And I'm just glad that I'm almost at the end of it. And I don't know if you're even interested in hearing that story. But I felt like sharing it with you guys, and it kind of explains why I'm going to be in hospital for the next 5 days or so. And I just felt that, you know, if you're watching me, I talk about like my wife, I talk about my personal stuff, not super personal stuff, but, you know, I feel like I like to think that, you know, if you're watching someone, you get to know them a bit and stuff like that. I would have liked to have done this with a camera, actually, so you could get to see my face and all that. But I don't have a camera that's good enough. Like, I could use maybe the webcam on my laptop, but it's really shit quality, and I would rather if I was going to do it with a camera, I'd rather do it properly, and I'll get round to that at some stage. The next Berg brief, if you will probably have a camera, but this one anyway, I just wanted to sort of share that story with you, so let you know a little bit more about me, and, you know, and what I've been through, and, you know, what brought me to starting up a channel, because it's kind of like, you know, when you go through these kind of things and you start to think, you know what, well, why am I putting shit off? Why don't I just go and do what I wanted to do? I'm not going to turn around and say I always wanted to be a YouTube. That wasn't what I wanted to do growing up, was like, you know, have a YouTube channel or whatnot. But, you know, it's something I'd been wanting to do for a couple of years beforehand, and then it was just sort of like, well, you know what, you got plenty of time. You're off work a lot at the moment. Why don't you just do a channel? And there you go. A couple of months later, I got 350 plus subscribers, and I'm getting my bag removed. And I'm just happy about that, and I'm happy for any kind of enjoyment or happiness that I've given to anyone who's watched any of my videos, because, you know, it means a lot for someone to enjoy something that you've done. And I'm going to kind of cut short this because I don't really know how to tie it off. And, you know, if you've watched any of my videos, solo videos especially, you know I like to ramble. So we're going to end the first Berg brief there. But again, thank you to anyone watching this who's subscribed to the channel, who's ever got involved, who's ever interacted with me. It really means the world to me. And I should have videos going up. The regular series that are still going on should be going up throughout the course of this week. I'm uploading them as we speak. They might, depending on when I get out or something like that, I should be out by sort of Friday, Saturday, so everything should be fine. But, you know, obviously if there is some sort of issue, it's going to be a bit tricky for me to sort it out. So, you know, I'm sorry if you're going to miss a day's episode of here or there. You know, it can't be helped. But listen, I'll keep this under 30 minutes, hopefully. But, yeah, again, a big thank you to all of you, and I'll speak to you when I get out of hospital, eh? Take care. Bye-bye.